Hello, I'm Lence. I'm a rap and spoken word artist from Leeds, and welcome to Lesson 5 as part of Poetry Week. Before we get started on the lesson, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do and the experience I have as an artist. So there's a lot of different things I do in my creative work, and one of the main things I do is I write lyrics and I make music. I perform the lyrics that I've written over beats and instrumentals, and that takes the form of rap. And I also perform this material as poetry without any music behind it. So when I'm not writing and making music, I edit and direct my own music videos, organise events, and I run poetry and rap workshops in Yorkshire. So what is poetry to me? So poetry for me is a way of making sense of the world, expressing how you feel and writing about your own experiences. It's a way of being understood, being heard, being seen, and being listened to. And poetry, for me, it can be unconventional. It can break away from tradition. It can be immediate, powerful. Poetry can be rap. It can be lyrics that you write. It can be a conversation that you've overheard. I write poetry to express how I feel, to connect with other people, to tell a story that would otherwise never be told, and to channel my energy in a positive way. I write to process the things I've lived through, to unravel my thoughts, and to articulate my observations. What do I write about? I write about the things I've experienced, things that have shaped me in my life, and about the things that have inspired me. So I'm passionate about making original work, creating from an authentic place, which sometimes can be hard to do. But yeah, staying real to your story. So my writing focuses on a range of themes, from unemployment to social media to identity and class, and a lot more. So the title of today's lesson is Prepare for Your School Poet Laureate Competition. And the lesson objective is I can use intonation, volume and movement to convey meaning. So we'll be looking at performance today, and I hope your writing's been going really well and that you have a poem or you're working towards a piece of writing that you can perform as part of this competition. So for this session, we'll be looking at all the different things that are related to performance of your poetry in order to feel as ready as possible to share your work in front of an audience. So tips and advice for performing. And we want to be performing with confidence, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some tips and advice to help you with performing your poetry. So what we'll do is we'll start with a bit of a warm-up. So when we step onto the stage and we're sharing our work, it helps for us to be as active as possible in the space. So when we go to that space, we're going to own that space for that moment that we're there. So what I want to do is, first of all, we'll stretch out, we'll go really big as possible, big movements, and we'll take it down, and then we'll go up one more time and just really stretch right up there. And what I find is when I'm performing and I'm about to go to that space where I'm sharing my work, I'm definitely feeling nervous, and what helps is for me to be able to walk around and get active. So if I can be walking around just a little bit before I go on the stage and I'm getting a bit physical, it kind of takes those nerves away from being tense. So maybe what you could do in your class is you could each share a stretch or an exercise or a movement that will help you to kind of warm up, shake off any of those nerves, and get yourself ready to be sharing your work and be moving as much as possible when you're performing on the stage. So up next, I've got loads of different tips for your performance. So first of all, we'll start with intonation, how you can say each line. So how should that line be said? So you can think of all those lines in your poem and what are they saying to you with how they should be said? Should they be said a certain way? Are they calling out with a certain meaning in how they should be delivered? So what you can do is you can think about how each line may have a different emotion linked to it, or with your poem it might have a specific theme or a specific emotion. So you can think of that. Also, an important thing when we're performing is tempo. So for me, I think the key is to be as slow as possible, because even when you're going slow, you could still be going fast. And really, it's about working those things out and making sure we have a clear idea of how we're coming across when we're performing. So up next, we'll do tempo. So with your poem and when you're delivering your lines, one of the most important things is to be performing that poem as clearly and also as slow as you can for the time being, because when we're performing, sometimes we can think we're going slow, but we're actually going quite fast. And that can happen when I'm doing rap as well. So that flow naturally starts to show up when I'm performing. So yeah, try and take a step back and kind of really breathe and think, okay, I want to be able to finish every single line that I'm performing to everybody and not rushing through it. Because in that poem, you'll have some really, really good lines and you don't want to skip through those lines and for people not to have the chance to hear them. So yeah, make sure you can make every line in that poem matter. And then next up, we're going to talk a little bit about movement and body language. So when we're up on the stage and we're performing, I think it's good to just be a little bit loose, kind of get the tension out of your body. And what can help with that is when you're stood in front of that mic stand and you have a solid base to how you stood. So if you walk up to it and you're like, right now, I'm stood here. It's strong, it's a good foundation for the performance. And when you're on stage as well, you can be looking at the space on stage where you could go. So there could be a certain time where you could, in your poem, where you're thinking of, you know what, I'm going to walk into that space and then I'm going to come back to the mic stand. And you don't always have to be confined to one particular part of the stage, because that can help engage the audience as well. So think about your movement, what you're doing with your hands and what you're doing with the whole of your upper body when you're performing, because we need to project and make sure we're really reaching the audience. And a really important thing up next is eye contact. And this can be really difficult. And for me, when I'm performing, this can be tough as well. So what I do is when I'm going to perform, I dare myself to just face that audience. Because when you've got that out of the way and you're facing those people, you can then bring in some tricks to help you get through the fact that everybody might be looking back at you. And that can be the moment where you feel the pressure. So if you're looking at a group of people, you can kind of zone it out as a bit of a blur by just looking a little bit just above their heads, because people aren't going to really notice whether or not you're looking at them or not, eye contact wise. But if you just face that audience and find maybe an object in the crowd that you can look at and that isn't putting you under pressure when you're going to that point and you're looking over there, that can help you as well. Finding and developing your style. So this is something that takes a long time performance-wise, and you can be writing for a very long time and still be working out what your style is. And I think one of the keys to thinking about style and how you are on stage is looking at the work that you write, looking at the meaning of that work, and what does that work say, how it should be delivered. What's it saying to you when you're looking at that work? So you want to be trying to bring that to life on the stage, and that comes through meaning and purpose. And that goes in really nicely into presence as well. So what we're doing with presence is, it's not necessarily a physical presence, because we can think of it like that, but also we're looking at things of your purpose coming to life on the stage. And that can come through with how you're standing in your body language, but it can come through with how you're committed and you've got conviction in your words. So how you carry yourself on stage, connecting with the audience and having that confidence and purpose will help build that presence. And it will help shake off the nerves, because if you know why you're saying what you're saying, that will take care of some of the nerves as well. And another thing to help with nerves is practice and preparation. That is one of the key things to feeling at home when you're on the stage. And what can happen is when we're performing under pressure, things can feel different as well. So one of the key things is to make sure that we know our performance as much as we can. So some of you might be reading your piece of work. Some of you might have learnt your poem. And what happens with that is everyone's got different ways of processing their work and processing their writing. So what we want to be able to do is when we're on that stage and we're performing, just know what works best for you and just stand by that. So sometimes it can be considered cool not to put the effort in, not to try, but when it comes down to that moment where you are standing up in front of everybody and you've got your writing, all that practicing will pay off. So get a balance with the practicing. Don't do it all the time, but definitely be thinking about it and come up with like a bit of a regular routine in the run up to the performance just to get you in that groove. Up next is the power in the pause. And what this will do is it can be used as an instrument. So when we think of the power of the pause, we think of silence as an instrument. How can you be talking and then all of a sudden interrupt that flow and just be able to change the atmosphere in the room? So think about that. There will be a moment in your writing where you can really step into the moment of, okay, I'm performing, everybody's looking at me, let's soak it up. Let's just stop and let the line that we've just written really resonate around the room. So find that line in your poem where you think I need to put a pause in and have a little bit of silence after that, and see how that goes for you when you're performing. Delivery and tone. So saying a line in a way that fully expresses the meaning of it. And this can be a real tough thing to do, and it's something that comes with time and development. So feel the line you're saying. That is what I'd say. So how should it be said, and what is the emotion, and what is the tone of it? So ask yourself those questions and think, okay, how can I get the most out of that? And we've touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'd say every line matters, because when we're writing, we don't want to be writing a line that's just a setup in a way for another line. We can do that, and I've done that before, but can we get to a point where we're making every line in that piece really matter to take you from the start point all the way to a really powerful ending? So can you write a line that does what you're trying to say justice? And that's like a challenge. It's a real challenge. So every line has a massive amount of potential. And when we're thinking about performing that, there's loads of different possibilities for how you could perform that. Could it be sung? Could it be whispered? Could it be shouted? Could it be rapped? And what could the work or the writing or the poem, what could it lead to? Could it lead to a commission? Could it lead to something where people want to work with you? So think about the work that you're creating and never write off the possibilities of what it could lead to. So up next, this might be appropriate for people experimenting with a bit of rap in with their poetry and spoken word, and it can be relevant as well just for talking on stage, and that's pace and flow. So you can experiment with your pace. So earlier I said about making sure you slow down when you're performing, but there could be bits where you can do really quick and you can have a flow and a snap to how you're performing that can catch the attention of the audience and show people the intricate layers in your writing as well. So with this one, this is called set duration, and we're talking about how long you are performing for. So when I'm performing, I tend to go by the phrase less is more. And what happens with that is, can you showcase your work but not go on too long when you're performing your work, just so you hit the audience with that moment where they're like, right, that was really good, I want to hear more, and you haven't kept on going to the point where they're a bit tired of you. So think about that phrase, less is more, and how can each poem in your collection, in your performance, or even each line really be performed differently in order to really get the attention of the audience, of the room, and how can you change the energy of the room? So you might be aware that, okay, people aren't necessarily really looking at what I'm doing right now. How can you get maybe a movement in there to suddenly get everybody paying attention to what you're doing? We've looked at movement already, so what I'd say is go for that movement when it matters. So there's times when I'm performing where it might be more beneficial for me to step away from the mic stand and then go towards the audience and project and shout a little bit louder, just to have that impact of being unpredictable and not being fixed into one space. So yeah, keep that body language natural. Up next, we've got reading versus performing. So some of you, especially if you're right at the start of your journey, which you will be when you're in school, you will be reading your work, and that is a real natural thing to do. And I think it can be harder than just knowing your work as well, because you have the piece of paper in front of you, and you've got to do a performance with that piece of paper and try and not sound like you're reading it. So what I do is really think about ways you can still engage the audience and how you can see what's coming on your piece of paper. So you can do a little bit of practicing before, so you know you can look up and you don't have to be reading all of it. But what I'd say is, yeah, keep practicing, and that piece of paper could help you overcome your nerves as well, because it's there. And if at any time or any moment you need to step away, you can look at the piece of paper and be like, right, that's where I am with my poem. I can just say that line and I'm back with it. So yeah, take your time with that. Audience. We're thinking about how can we be a good audience? We can be a good audience by paying attention, being loud and clapping when the performers finish their piece of work. And also when we're up on that stage, how can we connect with the audience and be entertaining? So you can think of your performance as a journey, and you're taking everybody in that room with you on a journey. So you can have a clear start to your performance, do something maybe a little bit different in the middle to surprise, or maybe a twist in how you've written your piece of work, and then finish with a really strong ending to get that great reaction at the end. Okay, so we've just looked at all of those tips for performance, and up next I'm going to do a performance of my own, and it will be the poem that's in your handbook that you can have a look at. So this one is called Get Told, and it's about being underestimated, it's about overcoming obstacles, and also keeping to your word. So it goes like this. If I say I'm going to do it, then I do it till I've done it. They said they're going to do it, but it never gets done. If I say I'm going to do it, then I do it till I've been there and done it. If I do it, then I'm getting it done. So save it, revive it, escape it, survive it, reclaim, rebuild, rewrite it. I'm making them alter their tone, get told, get shown. If they underestimate, this hunger escalates, bringing me to elevate the levels I've raised. I said, I'm going to do it. They were saying to me, how? But that's not what they're saying to me now. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of inspiration for your own writing, your own poems. So what I'd say is absolutely go for it. Submit a poem, even if you think, oh, I'm not too sure. There'll be something that you have to say that no one else is saying. There's an experience that no one else is having. You've all got your own unique story to tell. So just go for it, submit it, and I'm sure I'll see you at an event very soon. Thank you.